The off season is officially here for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but post-mortem coverage isn't quite over, David. The players and media set to speak today for the first time since their elimination night. I'll tell you what I do and don't want to hear at a locker room cleanout today, and some interesting comments are being made and kind of coming to light from a lot of the insiders regarding Jack Campbell's future with the team. We'll get into all of that and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother from TSN's Overdrive and 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts from, and also go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. And yes, the season may be over, but Dave and I, we're here all the way through till the end of the playoffs, the end of free agency with daily shows, Monday to Friday, to give you all that Leafs and NHL content that you're looking for. So make sure that you're subscribed to get all that information. Look, Dave, there's quite a bit to get into today. Now, like I said, the post-mortem chat isn't over. We're still kind of need to dissect some of the stuff that went on, some of the conversations that are going to be had today with players and management speaking, what messaging we do and don't want to hear come out of these guys' mouths when they take to the podium later on, and maybe what direction we feel like this team might be going into or what direction they could go into. But before we kind of get into all of that, a story kind of coming across the wire here, just as we were getting ready to record this podcast on Monday night. Mitchell Marner, part of a carjacking in the Etobicoke area per the Toronto Sun. Somebody looking to get his Range Rover, apparently robbed at I believe, gunpoint at an Etobicoke cinema. Nobody was hurt, just kind of shook from the whole thing, as obviously you would be with, guns pointed at you. Apparently, there are 3 suspects that are wanted. This happened, would you say, a week prior? This is kind of happening, starting to pop up and be a little bit more common, which is extremely scary to think about. Luckily, no one was hurt, right? The guns weren't used, and according to a source, the guns weren't really even directly pointed at them. They just wanted to get the car, and Mitch Marner said, "Go ahead, take it. I would rather keep my life and whatnot." But a very scary situation for Mitch Marner to be in.
Yeah, no, very scary. I mean, this actually, I live like 15 minutes from this, like 10, 15 minutes from this theater. I was there a week ago. Like, it's very crazy. It's a very busy movie theater. So, like, that's a pretty bold place to go and try to attempt a carjacking. But it's, yeah, reading the article, it's becoming really prevalent. Actually, 2 days ago, there was an incident. If you looked at Toronto police, there was an incident 2 days ago where it was an unsuccessful one, but clearly something is awry, and it's very unnerving to think that someone was put in a position where they're being robbed of their car at gunpoint. Good thing is that Mitch is okay, and yeah,
Buddies. I think because there was three people with him, right? It was him and 2 buddies, and all 3 are okay, obviously. And Marner, according to a source, did believe that they didn't even know who he was. They just wanted the vehicle, and they did not care who he was. They didn't really know. They just wanted the keys, and they were going to get out of there, which may even be kind of a blessing, right? That they didn't try and go for more or anything like that. Don't even want to speculate on what potentially could have occurred, but just kind of good to know that he's safe. Obviously, a little bit shook. I wonder if he's going to end up speaking to media tomorrow after this. I mean, it's got to be a traumatic thing, and I don't know if it'd be a pretty easy way to kind of not not get out of it as if he doesn't want to do it. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think everybody would understand if he doesn't want to speak to media, knowing that this potentially could come up.
I think. Well, my hope is that the Leafs will put like once the Leafs have gotten all the details,
Yeah.
they'll put out a statement and kind of I wouldn't say kibosh the thing, but like just get the details out there. Maybe just say that Marner, just out of respect, they're not going to comment further on it because
Hmm.
it's. But yeah, I would. That's you. That's what I'm kind of hoping happens. I mean, I guarantee by the time this is released and people watch it, we might have already gotten some sort of
Right.
statement from the Leafs or something like that. But that's kind of my hope, and for Marner's sake, I'm hoping. I mean, I'm sure he'll get if it doesn't get addressed before, he'll get asked about it if he's made available. Kind of don't want that to happen because you don't want someone to have to relive that trauma.
Yeah.
Again,
I would hope that at the very least, Steve Keogh, who's like the main PR guy there,
yeah.
tells the media, like they said, look, we'll make him available to you guys, but let's keep it to hockey. Keep it on the ice. Keep it to hockey. Let's not like this is. I mean, I assume it's kind of an ongoing investigation. I would assume in a way. So I don't even know how much he really could even talk about it like publicly like that. But I would imagine he wouldn't want to anyways. And I mean, guys like myself and yourself, if we were down there for end of season media scrums, I don't think asking him about this specific incident really does anything for our stories going forward, to be honest with you. So, I know that this stuff it comes up, it happens. Unfortunately, well, it doesn't happen that often where it's kind of an athlete and somebody close that to you that but I would assume that the media will be told ahead of time, let's just not bring it up. And hopefully everybody abides and doesn't. It's not like it's like a little fender bender car accident that sometimes happens. This is something that it was kind of out of his control, and there's not much that he could really say about it, I'm sure, at the end of the day either.
Yeah, I know. Like, how much more can you really add? Like, other than that, it was a very obviously more than like, what can you add other than the obvious? I
Right.
mean, you're just
Exactly.
gonna probably get the obvious answers too. So yeah, just glad that no one was hurt, and hopefully the police can find the suspects.
Absolutely. All right, let's transition and kind of shift gears and get into what we wanted to discuss today. Before we get into that, though, Dave, why don't you tell the good folks and the good listeners and viewers of our show about one of our show sponsors, and that's Built Bar.
Yep, ladies and gentlemen, Built Bar continues to deliver some tasty, tasty treats for you. Their newest one is a birthday cake flavored puff bar. I cannot believe they actually found a way to make this possible, but they have. They're available right now, and we can't promise they'll be there tomorrow. So get them today at built.com. And if you haven't tried the puffs, I'll let you know on a little secret because that's what friends do. A chocolate covered marshmallow protein bar. Yeah, you heard me. Delicious flavored marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. Make every day your birthday with Built Bars birthday cake puffs. Bill has taken the delicious experience of biting into a fresh slice of birthday cake and robbed it in 100% white chocolate and added sprinkles. With 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, and only 9 grams of sugar, this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Go to built.com to get birthday cake puffs now. So make sure that if you want to save some money on this, go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. So that is promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off at built.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On At Least podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, and we're your hosts here at Locked On Leafs, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe. We are on our road to 1,000 subs on YouTube. We are, what are we at? Like 795, I think last I
We
saw
are
in the 790.
780, 779, I believe, is where I last saw it.
I thought I saw we had a couple of more, but anyways, we're on our
Sorry,
way.
791. You're right.
I was gonna say, I thought we saw in the 790s, pal. Well on our way to 1,000. So go ahead, sub up, give it, show your friends, tell them to sub up as well. And once we get to 1,000, we're giving away a jersey. So the quicker you can get there, the quicker we'll get to 1,000 subs. All right. So today's going to be an interesting day in Maple Leafs Nation. If you're already listening, I guess, or if you've already heard what had been said from the Maple Leafs and management, this stuff might be a little bit old hat for you, and I guess we'll have some of these answers. But as of now, we haven't heard anybody speak yet. I'm curious what you think the messaging is going to be coming out of these guys, or more so, like what messaging do you want to hear from, like, let's say Kyle Dubas or Shanahan or Marner, Matthews, Tavares? Like, what messaging do you want to hear at the year-end locker cleanout meetings this season?
It's a good one. I just I want them to say that it's unacceptable. I don't want to hear that we were close, we almost did it. I want them to say that really for the sixth year in a row to not be able to make it past the first round, that's unacceptable. And as a franchise, we cannot accept that, and we need to find a way to move forward. And we're willing to look at all the areas that can allow us to do that. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like there's a couple of buzzwords that I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear these guys talk about how they had their opportunities. The word opportunities at this point makes me cringe so much. Well, we had our opportunities. Yeah, so did Tampa, except they finished on those opportunities and you did not. So that's got to change. So I don't want to hear anything about opportunities. I want to hear about results and finish. That's not something that the Maple Leafs have been able to do really in the last 6 years, actually in the last 18, 19 years, that this team hasn't been able to get out of the first round. I digress on that. I don't want to hear anything about learned lessons. There's no more lessons to be learned. I can't think of any more lessons that they got to learn at this point. Like you've kind of been through it all, right? You've been the favorite, you've been the underdog, you've been the big time underdog, you've come from behind, you've had, 2, 3 games, 1 game series leads. You've gone into the third period leading. You've gone into the third period down by a goal. You've been in every situation and still haven't learned how to finish it off, right? Like, learn lessons to me is such a buzzword. I don't really want to hear it. When I talked about Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan, more so Kyle Dubas, I don't want to hear this whole we believe in this core and this group and we want to get it done with this core and this group. The whole we can and we will mentality, it's over. It's over for me. You've had that chance. We can and we will. Well, you could have and you haven't, realistically. To me, what I want to hear from these guys, what I want to hear from Kyle Dubas or Brendan Shanahan, the president and general manager of the Maple Leafs, I want to hear them say, everything needs to be on the table this offseason. Everything, right? Needs to be on the table. I'm not saying that they're open to trading everybody or they're going to entertain everybody or you're going to make a move for the sake of just, making a move. But you got to at least entertain these calls that are coming their way. Somebody calls and they're asking about Nylander. You got to listen. Someone calls and they're asking about Marner. I don't think you're probably not going to do it. It would have to knock your socks off, but I don't think you hang up right away. I mean, Marner and Matthews are near untouchables for me at this point, but you don't hang up right away. So I think what I do want to hear is them saying they're going to have to look at this group and figure out if they can get it done. It's been 6 years. They haven't been able to do it. Do they get another opportunity? I'm not sure about that. We can debate that in a moment, whether or not we think that that's the road they should go down. But I don't want to hear anything about how, we believe that this group and this core can get it done. No, I think they need to flat out say, we got to evaluate what we got here, who's bought in, who isn't, and go forward with the guys who are. That's really the messaging that I really want to hear coming out of Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan today.
Yeah, because we've
Sheldon
already
Keefe,
heard.
for that matter.
We've already heard. I mean, I think Sheldon Keefe is a key one here because he's constantly been the guy that says we've had our opportunities, we've had our chances, we looked good, all those things.
We hear that guy talk every day, though. Like, he's not the one that
Yeah.
I'm most intrigued
Well,
by. It's
well,
Dubas and
yeah.
Shanahan, right?
I think there's quite a bit of hot seat on Sheldon Keefe because Pete DeBoer just got fired. Barry Trotz just got fired, and those are coaches that you're just like they had way more success than Sheldon Keefe's had,
Yeah.
and they were let go. So like I'm curious to see if anyone asks about Keefe's like future and all those things. Yeah, but Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan are clearly the ones that I want to hear from. Like even the players, like to be fair with the players, they've already got their prepared answers. They already know what they're gonna say. Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan more so, especially Kyle Dubas, because he's gone to bat for these players. He has staked his reputation on these players. And again, it's the same result. We saw Brendan Shanahan's expression at the end of that game 7. This is a guy who showed frustration. We've seen it a little bit. We haven't seen it that much because clearly we're always looking at Kyle Dubas, and Kyle Dubas is always showing an expression during the games.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear excuses this time. I want to hear that there's gonna be like clear, concrete action. I don't mind if they say that they've made mistakes because that's part of the process. You got to understand the mistakes you made and the way to learn from them. But it's actually putting that to action.
What to you would be the mistakes, though?
Well, maybe the mistakes in thinking that like Kyle Dubas did. I will say this: he addressed as many flaws that this team had, and he's gone out and he's made improvements. It's more so thinking that the strategy.
Are we going back to like giving Matthews the contract he demanded,
Yeah,
giving Marner the contract he demanded,
maybe yeah.
signing Tavares, which was a luxury? Are those the mistakes that we still go back to? The ones made 4 or 5 years ago that
So,
today they're living with and trying to tinker with, but ultimately they're really struggling. Is that what you're referring to?
so you sent me that Ryan Kessler clip. You and I kind of talked about it.
Oh,
Here's
do
the
you
thing.
have that? Do we want to play that actually? Because
Um,
if you're gonna comment on it, I think maybe I could try and bring it up potentially.
I think I can pull it up. Just give me
I
2
think I
seconds.
texted it to you because if you're gonna comment on it, we might as well play it so that
Okay.
everybody has the
I
thought.
want to play it first because I want to maybe it'll help me clarify one thing
Right.
I want to say about that. But yeah, let me play this Kessler clip because I think this is kind of an important one here. If Twitter,
Yeah, so I'll set it up for you while you get it up. But Ryan Kessler, longtime NHLer, played with the Vancouver Canucks. He was on, I think it was Sakaris and Price, if I'm not mistaken.
yep.
So yeah, he was on Sakaris and Price out in Vancouver, and he had talked about how his group and that Canucks core, they all kind of took a discount. They all could have been paid a little bit more money, but they wanted to stick together because they knew they had a pretty good squad, a pretty good shot. Ultimately, they didn't win the whole thing, but they had a long run to a Game 7 in a Stanley Cup final, and then things kind of plummeted afterward. But he talked about how it was kind of a team buy-in. Guys had to leave a little bit of money on the table. He doesn't quite see that didn't happen here in Toronto, and he kind of thinks that might be a reason for why this team is where they are today. So why don't we play that clip?
Okay.
This great clip brought to you by, wait for it, Great Clips. It's going to be great.
If you want to win, leave some on the table. I mean, I made more than enough money to support myself for the rest of my life, and unfortunately we fell short. But you look at that team, everybody. I mean, I'd say 90% of the players took a pay cut. They know they could have made more. You look at our decor that we had. We look at our goaltending. You look at Hank and Danny, what they took. They could have got more somewhere else, but they knew the kind of group we had. And you look at the guys nowadays; they're taking their big contracts right away, and you wonder why Toronto struggles. Toronto struggles because they have two young players that are making way too much money. Like maybe not, but like whatever happened to the bridge deal to set yourself up for a championship team so you can add on one or two pieces that could make the difference. Instead, they lose in the first round every year.
Yeah, and when you actually go and you break it down and you look at it, no other team outside of the Toronto Maple Leafs really went with this model. Maybe a little bit in
Like Edmonton
Edmonton,
with Draisaitl,
but
McDavid, they
but
did
even Draisaitl's only making what, 8 mil?
9.5, I think, is what he's at. Still less
Okay.
than like Marner or Matthews for sure.
Right, exactly. So like, and even then, it's those two teams both neither have really had success with this model. So he's got a a bit of a point, but here we are though, years later, there's nothing you could do about it. Like these are the contracts that they've signed. It's now up to Kyle Dubas and Brandon Pridham and all them to go ahead and try and finagle the cap and try and massage the roster to try and make it the best they possibly can. But at a certain point, something's got to give. Where maybe one of those guys who you did sign to big money deals, the way that you kind of get yourself out of that cap hell is to maybe move on from one of them. And I think that's where it kind of goes back to the whole point of I don't want to hear the same messaging about how they believe in this core and this group and they will get it done next year. I think that everything needs to be on the table, even moving one of those big key guys. I don't think it'll be Marner. I don't think it'll be Matthews. But if they can find a taker for Tavares, if he wants to leave, obviously he's got a no move clause and it's completely up to him. But that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if the Leafs were able to move on from his contract. William Nylander, he's a great player, but I would get the sense that if there's some sort of move to be made, he's probably the most likely guy to be dealt, and probably not Morgan Riley either, since he just signed an extension here and he's their number one defenseman. So really, I'm looking at Willie or JT as the two guys who are most likely to kind of not get moved, but for them to consider moving if they want to make a big, I guess, change this offseason to the core. But they got to be open to at least listening. They can't completely close the door like they did last year. Like you heard them last year, and they just basically said, "No, we're running it back with this group. They'll get it done. We believe in them." Well, they did it, and they didn't get it done. Right? You can't go back to the well again, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the tough part here because the issues with contracts and stuff is once it's signed, there's not much you can really do about it. The money's the money. Players getting paid what they're getting paid. The Kessler thing, I think he kind of caught himself a bit in saying like they're getting paid what they probably should be getting paid based on like their status as superstar players in the league. I think that's not the point he was trying to make there. The point he was trying to make is that it really they like imagine what this team could do if those guys made even $2 to $3 million less each, right?
Yeah, it's you know what it's called? Look at the success that Boston had. Look at the success that Colorado is having
Wa-
with those guys who took the bridge deal.
Washington,
Washington had that. I mean,
Pittsburgh,
Sid made what, 8.7 million for how many years? Like he was extremely underpaid, but didn't matter because he left some money on the table to bring other guys in. Now at the time, 8.7 was a little bit more money than it is now, but still, like that was just they really did. They didn't gouge for the most money and the term also. Like Matthews, not only did he get 11 million bucks, he got like the top tier dollar amount. It also walked him right to unrestricted free agency.
yeah, he didn't.
He didn't give up anything.
Years.
Yeah,
He
like, he
should
didn't give
not
up
be
anything.
out of that. That's the part I always with the Matthews contract. You didn't get 8 years. Draisaitl McDavid gave the Oilers 8 years.
Yeah.
It keeps that window open a lot longer than than having Matthews at 5 years. So,
Well,
go ahead.
well, just as we talk about it's a 5-year window, right? A 5-year deal. It gets shortened because now you look at it, he can sign that extension as early as next summer, right? So there's 2 years left on that contract, but he can sign that extension by next summer. you kind of have to prove to him between now and July of next year that he can win with this team, right? You got to prove to him that you're willing to do whatever it takes to get it done, whether that means making a ballsy move or that means, changing up the coach, doing whatever it takes to get it done, but staying the course. I don't know. It hasn't happened. It hasn't worked to this point. Is that going to keep working? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, that's the tough part there because yeah, like you're now if you're Kyle Dubas, you're just like, man, I got to deal with the contract thing all over again. And on top of that, there's been so much talk about Matthews and where he's gonna go, what he's gonna do. Um, I think but here's the thing with Matthews is that I think he realizes what Toronto has provided for him, both on and off the ice. Um, I I'm of the belief that yeah, you do need to make a big change. You also have to be careful of what are you changing for? What's really the move that's going to keep, as you said, keep this window open, right? Because you can trade a William Nylander, you can trade a John Tavares, but then those are two guys you have to replace somehow. Like you
Well,
don't
you're not trading for duds. I mean, if you're making
no,
a
not at all.
deal, you're making a hockey deal, you would think.
Like here's the thing I'll say about the Tavares contract. He has the no movement clause, so it's ultimately his decision. But we just saw the Buffalo Sabres move away from Jack Eichel's contract,
Yeah.
and they didn't get worse because of it. Sure, they missed out on the playoffs, but they got pieces. They
Yeah.
got they got things that made them a better team down the road. So I think if you're the Leafs, you can kind of think of it in that regard. But yeah, you just have to be super careful because now every team knows the pressure is on Kyle Dubas to do something, and they're going to try to take advantage.
Yeah, they're throwing grenades, not lifelines out there.
Nope.
Why don't we discuss a couple of avenues that he could go down this coming off season on the other side? But before we get to that, let me tell you guys all about our partners at Bet Online. They continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sport developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information. From live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Dave Morassutti with me. Maple Leafs doing their locker cleanout, and they'll be speaking with the media later today. Perhaps you've already heard them speak by the time you're listening to this podcast, but we are not privy to those conversations as of the recording of this show. But it seems like there's really only two avenues, two options Kyle Dubas has for this offseason. Tell me if I'm wrong. Either run it back with the exact same core. There's obviously going to be tinkering. Like you're never run it back with the full 18-man squad. But you run it back with the same core. And that's Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, Riley. Probably Brody would be included in that core at this point. And Jack Campbell's an interesting one because he's we'll get into Jack Campbell in a moment. But like you're either running it back with that core, or you make a tinker and you kind of change your core up a little bit. And the comparison that seems to be getting brought into the fold right now is this kind of has to be Kyle Dubas's Masai Ujiri moment where, maybe it takes, an opportunity where you have a good coach, you have a great coach, right? Remember when Masai fired Dwayne Casey? The guy was coach of the year. 3 days later, gave him his walking papers after winning coach of the year, Dave. Like that was a ballsy move. And then a few days later, he trades away the franchise icon in DeMar DeRozan. So, when you look at that, Kyle Dubas similarly could do some things here to really shake up the culture of this team. And the way that Brian Hayes actually brought up today on Overdrive, he said that these moves could, make the Leafs a little uncomfortable and make them like perform and put a jolt into the locker room in the way that those Masai Ujiri moves did for the Raptors and allowed them to finally get over the hump, right? Like the Raptors had plenty of regular season success. They, had set new individual records. They were setting franchise records, much of the way that the Maple Leafs have been able to do the last couple of years, but just couldn't get over the hump of the playoffs. Very similar story. So when you talk about a tinker, this would be the Masai Ujiri, where it's a little bit more than a tinker, I suppose. But you're taking one of your guys, one of your stars, whether it is Tavares, whether it's Nylander, maybe it is somebody else, a Riley, a Marner, perhaps. Like I doubt it, but perhaps. And you try and make a move to you got to make yourself better. Like you're not just making a move just to make a move. You're not moving out. These aren't salary dumps. Let's be also straight up with that. You're not making salary dumps. You're making hockey deals. And then there's also the coach situation where you mentioned it earlier. You got Barry Trotz. You've got Pete DeBoer. Two very successful coaches out there on the market that could be had if you feel they can get the job done in a way that Sheldon Keefe, 3 years in a row now, has not been able to do to have his team prepared for these do or die situations. Which way do you think that the Maple Leafs will go, should go, need to go? I'll kind of let you take on that question in your own way.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot the last few days, and it's tough because really hockey makes it so tough to make those big deals, big swinging trades. I've been of the opinion that no player other than Marner Matthews should be safe on this team. So I mean, look, I like what William Nylander can provide. I see it on the ice. It doesn't translate the results I want all the time. And I just think sometimes the market isn't the right fit for him as well. Just the pressure. He can sometimes he plays it off as cool, but I don't think he handles it quite this. I mean, not it's hard in Toronto. Like that's one thing I have to make clear here. But I just think that when you got guys like Marner Matthews, I think you need a different look outside of them. You got to bring in a different element to pair off them. We saw William Nylander and John Tavares not coexist during the regular season. Like that proved that duel just does not work. And in the playoffs, they didn't really work off each other. Tavares was good, but it wasn't because Nylander was good. And Nylander had some good moments, but it wasn't because of John Tavares. Like I think the fact that those two can't coexist together just proves that something has to change there. And in my opinion, the easiest thing to do is to move William Nylander. And the other reason I think that is the Sheldon Keefe situation. If you were adamant on bringing back Sheldon Keefe, William Nylander cannot be here because I don't think Sheldon Keefe. I think he's at its wit's end with Nylander because the guy got moved to the third line. You can't have someone making $6 million
I don't.
playing on your third line.
Yeah, I don't. I don't necessarily agree with that take. I think moving him to the third line wasn't, uh, a what's the word I'm looking for here? It wasn't a punishment. I think that he just legitimately wanted to spread out the scoring, and it seemed to work better. And that line almost played. That line was far more productive when it was Kampf, Engvall, and Nylander than when it was Tavares, Nylander, and Kerfoot. It just happened to. It happened to work that kind of top nine model where you spread them out. I don't necessarily think it's that. And Nylander or Sheldon Keefe did periodically move him up on the second line to get him those extra minutes, move him up on the top line to get him those extra minutes, played him on the top power play unit. So he did his due diligence to get him those extra minutes that he missed out by not playing in the top six. And for those listening, to the little finger quotes as top six. So I don't like 100% buy into that, that theory because he still was getting his minutes. But I do understand the fact that if you're looking at a guy that maybe is the easiest path to trade, Willie is that guy. I think the most, in my opinion, the most beneficial deal they could move would be John Tavares. Like let's not lie to ourselves here. The guy's got 3 more years left on his deal. He's slowed down immensely. The scoring touch isn't quite there as much. The speed has been a massive downward spiral really all season long in the playoffs. There was times we're texting each other like, man, this guy looks slow. When he gets, below the hash marks and when he gets in behind goal, sure, he did some great things, with his edge work and with his hands, but you got to get there with the puck first. And how many times did he try and walk himself, down through the slot and just couldn't beat guys one-on-one anymore. It just doesn't happen too often for a guy making $11 million in a cap era like this with a team so cap strapped. That would be the one that would be preferred. Obviously, the no move clause means he's going to have to make that decision himself. Also, the fact that he is this team's captain, he's from here, local kid, came home on what was considered, a discount by his standards because he left money on the table to come to Toronto, of all places. So it does get more difficult, which means Nylander is probably the most logical person that you could deal if you are Kyle Dubas. I think that's probably how most people would see it.
Yeah, see, the thing with Tavares is that he has definitely lost a step. He didn't perform at the level I expected of him during the regular season, but in the playoffs, when things were getting tough, he found a way to at least up his game. When Leafs were down, he found the way to get them back into it in the way that Marner Matthews didn't, especially in games 5 and 6. He was their best player in those 2 games, and the more impactful player. So maybe it's an adjustment that John Tavares has to make. I don't know, but
Move to the wing.
Pardon?
Move to the wing.
If you have to do that, sure. If you can make that move work, it's not like the amount of money he makes means that he has to play center. That's not necessarily. You can make it work. Teams, not every player in the NHL needs to be fast. You just need to be smart. I think he will go and he'll make improvements to get better. I just think that salary, you're fool. Like I see. I mean, I'm not even gonna entertain the comments about I'll move him and eat half the salary because you're just gonna willingly accept a $5.5 million cap hit, that's even more asinine than keeping him. Like,
No.
I don't understand those, like that type of logic and thinking. But if a team offers a deal for Tavares and it's good enough, sure, you have to entertain it.
Maybe not today, but I think what we will have to do over the next little bit, and since this is it's off season mode, David, we got to fill time anyways. We got podcasts coming out every day. A little homework for us is we can try and look around the league and maybe see if we can find some suitable teams that would actually not only would want John Tavares, not like Tavares is not accepting a trade to Arizona. Not happening. I'll tell you that right now. Right? Why would he accept that? Like, that's the easy place where we say, oh, send him there. The cap hit, they'll love to have the cap hit because the cash isn't nearly as much. Well, he doesn't want to go there, and that's not going to happen. But I'm sure there may be some teams. So how about, over the next week or so, we could come up with some ideas, and we could do this on a later podcast, maybe some trade proposals that potentially could work out for Tavares or work out for Nylander, whoever it may be. But something that I did find interesting, Elliot Friedman on 590 today said that he believes that the Leafs will make some changes. Particularly says that they'll be looking for more tenacity in their top 6. So that does lead to, some changes to be made in the top 6. If you're going to be making an ad there, odds are someone's got to come out, right, for the money to work at the end of the day. So it just kind of adds to the speculation that maybe this is the year that Masai / Dubas throws a bit of a grenade in there and makes a big move and makes kind of a core shakeup with one of those big key players. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a long off season. I don't anticipate a move being made, until the playoffs are over, where then things start to open up. But we'll have plenty of time to speculate in between that time and now, obviously. But I'll be curious to see what does come out of, the conversations that the media and players have today, players and management, when they speak with the media, that is. So we'll see what happens there. I think that's going to do it for us here today, though, Dave. Why don't we wrap things up here? I'd like to thank everyone for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms and receive daily Maple Leafs content. Yes, we're still here each and every day despite the season for the Maple Leafs being over. We're taking you all the way through to the end of the draft and free agency. And even then, still coming at you with a few shows a week throughout the offseason, throughout the summer. So 365, the Locked On Leafs podcast, is bringing y'all content. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your audio podcast from, and also hit subscribe, smash the like button. Leave a comment down below for what you think the Maple Leafs should do this offseason. Should they blow it up? Should there be a trade? Should they stay the course? Give them one more shot, one more year. What do you think? Leave it in the comment section below or reach out to us on Twitter. You can hit myself up at Meek_Canuck. You can hit Dave D_Morassutti. Also the show Locked On Leafs. All right, that'll do it for us here tonight. David, we will reconvene for tomorrow morning. And by then, we will have heard from Kyle Dubas. We will have heard from Brendan Shanahan, Austin Matthews, Jack Campbell, John Tavares, Riley, maybe Mitch Marner. We'll see if he gets released to the media or not by tomorrow. But regardless, we'll hear from the rest of the flock, and we'll be back the following day, tomorrow morning, to break it all down, pal. So that's going to do it for this episode. We'll catch you back here tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here